Here's a Honda Pilot. It's an 09. I'm going to tell you the absolute truth about them, what goes wrong with them, what's wrong with this one, what doesn't go wrong with them, whether you should buy one or not. Now, these are all put together in the United States. This particular one, he's wondering about the transmission. He's the original owner, getting a little herky-jerky. We're going to road test it with my computer and check it out. But when it comes to buying these things, sad but true for this owner, the one year you don't want to buy is 2009, because that's the one that's notorious for having transmission problems. Now, if you're thinking about buying one today, and it's an older one like this, especially 2009, first take it for a road test before you do anything. Take it on the highway, take it in the city. If it starts lurching at gears, shuddering, bring it back and say, no thanks, I don't want to buy it because it's going to need a transmission. A lot of the other ones have more minor problems that are obvious to see. The later model ones had paint that bubbled up. You can see this paint's still in perfectly good shape and it's black. And if anything's going to fade, it's going to be black paint from the heat of the sun. You can see there's some rust because this is Massachusetts. You can see the bolts are really rusty, but that's not the car's fault. That's just cheap bolts. The vehicle itself, as we go under, it's still really solid. That's not a problem that these have. They're pretty solid build. I mean, look at it. There's a lot of aluminum, which of course, aluminum doesn't rust. You got a steel control arm, believe me, it's gonna rust. I've even seen Lexus steel control arms rust off. This one's aluminum, better design. Costs more to make, but in the long run, it's a better deal. And some of them, the brakes wear out and the rotors warp, but they don't cost that much money to replace brake pads and rotors. It's not that big of a deal. Now, this one came with leather seats. They're still in decent shape. And being a 2009, it's got a reasonable amount of stuff on it here. It didn't come with a backup camera, or I should say, it doesn't have the normal backup camera that you're going to see in the dash. That came later. It's got one built into the rear view mirror. Now, it's somewhat smaller, you can see. You get old like me, it's going to be harder to see, but it's still there. It was a pretty luxurious vehicle in its day. It's got the old player here for DVDs for the kids, and being four-wheel drive, using the button, setting what you want. One of the big reasons people buy these is because they are large SUVs. It's the largest one that Honda makes. There's a lot of space here. Put the seats down, there's even more space. And as we go in the trunk, big gigantic trunk, there's more seats if you want more seats. These things have a lot of room, and the people in the back not only have some space, they got a decent view. It's not like they're inside a cave like some of these are. So we'll go under the hood and see that it has a great engine. It's a Honda V6. It does have rubber timing belts, which he recently had changed. That's one thing you gotta do. It's an interference engine, but it gets around 20 miles a gallon on a highway, and for something this big and this heavy, that's about as good as it's ever going to get if you have a gasoline engine. You'd have to go to a smaller engine and a hybrid setup. If you went to a four-cylinder engine and hybrid, my son's four-cylinder Sienna gets 37 miles a gallon, but it's not a four-cylinder, not a six, and it's also got the hybrid boost. So unless you're getting into high technology, this is about the best you're going to get, especially in this year. It still runs perfectly fine, the engine and everything, but he's worried about the transmission. We're going to take it for a road test in a few minutes, see exactly what's going on there. Now, of course, the transmission's a real big deal, but he still got the original AC compressor. He recently had the alternator changed, and he changed one of the ignition coils. Not that big of a deal for all these years. But realize one thing on this particular Honda. 14 years old, but check it out. It's only got 127,000 miles on it. So in my book, or most people, that's low mileage for all these years. Normally, that's nothing on a Honda, but the problem here is, this is the 1 year that they had problems with the automatic transmissions in these things. I mean, you can get a problem in any particular car, but it was more or less a design flaw of this particular model. So we're plugging the out scan tool on with the engine not running to get the interface set up. While we're waiting, you can see there's all kinds of space. This thing was well designed. Got a big old storage unit here. Even though it's an older car, it's got all kinds of power outlets on it. Realize that the Pilot shares a lot of stuff with the Acura MDX. A lot of stuff's very similar on them, so they're pretty luxurious vehicles. There's nothing slouchy about it. A complex car. We need a complex scanner to really get serious about it. We'll do all systems. You can see we're going through an awful lot of stuff here, which is a big reason. If you're going to buy a used car like this, you want a guy like me to check it out. There's too much things that could possibly go wrong. Going through 47 separate systems here. 7 out of 47, 8 out of 47. Now while we're waiting, realize originally these Pilots were made in Canada, but they've been made in Alabama for quite some time. But sadly, in the case of this 2009, it shared a lot of stuff with the Honda Odyssey van. And guess what? those Honda Odyssey vans of the same year, they had automatic transmission problems. Same engine too, so it's no surprise that both of these in 2009 had automatic transmission problems. And if the owners don't change the oil enough, a lot of these will burn a little bit of oil as they age, especially the ones that have those variable engines that turn off cylinders sometimes not. A lot of those are oil burners. If you do have one of those, my advice is to pay a guy like me to turn off the system that shuts the cylinders off every once in a while so that it only runs on 4 instead of 6 to get better gas mileage. That makes them burn oil too. So I wouldn't keep one of those systems active. If you bought one with that system, I would have it disconnected. Now the time's up. We got the codes. There's 4 of them. So let's check them out. We'll look at the BCM, circulation control motor. We really don't care about that. Now the other codes are ABS and tire pressure monitoring system. As with most older cars, the tire pressure monitoring systems aren't going to work anymore. The batteries go dead in the wheels. It costs a fortune to fix. Most people don't care. They'll get a tire pressure gauge. They won't spend a bunch of money fixing that crap. And the ABS, the anti-lock brake system, has one code, which is ECM, PCM, relation failure. The computers aren't talking to each other right. So he's worried about the tranny. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to transmission data. Say any codes. There's no trouble codes. So we're going to look at the live data. And as you can see, we have 62 bits of live data. And we're going to record it and take it on a road test. We go on a road test. Nice big high vehicle. A few creaks here and there. You're going to get that on an older vehicle. Especially one that lives in the rustland of Massachusetts. We'll see how the tranny shifts. I felt a little jiggle there. Let's see how passing gear works. Not bad. See how it shifts here. It's not really too bad so far. I can feel a slight jiggle when it's going down. Nothing outrageous. I'm standing, starting it and see how it feels. Yes, there's a little jiggle there in the first to second and the second to third. Nothing outrageous. Let's go back and analyze the data. So here we go to the data playback and you can watch. There's a lot of frames, 4,143 frames. So I play them and I start analyzing the data. And I can see that first to second and second to third especially, there's a little lag in the command of the shift and the actual shifting of the gear. It's not tripping any code, so it's not bad yet, but it's worn somewhat. So it does have that little shifting jiggle, but a lot of them will do it as they age. Now, this is a notorious problematic transmission, just like the ones they had in the Honda Odyssey, which shares a lot of similar parts, right? But since he's only got 127,000 miles, I predict this thing will still go for quite some time. It'll just have selected little jittery shifting, up shifts or down shifts, because they're somewhere. Now, on the other hand, I would not buy one of these used if it had 200-something thousand miles on it. But since he's the original owner, and it's got that jiggle in it, but it's really not bad, and it hasn't tripped any codes, things aren't as bad as the owner might think. The codes only trip when they get to 20-something% plus or minus. It's nowhere near that. So, if he babies it, it still might go quite some time. The money to replace a transmission on one of these four-wheel drive jobs. In the past, I had customers in Houston get them fixed free when they were still under warranty. And it was a fortune if they had to pay out of their pocket. Some of it was $8,000, $10,000. That was back then, so you know it's going to be even more today. But this one is not bad yet. Now, let's say you were going to buy this vehicle with 127,000 miles on it. I wouldn't pay that much for it just because, you know, eventually the transmission's going to go out. But if you're going to baby it and not drive it that many miles, there's no saying. I mean, it took them 13, 14 years. You put that little bit of mileage on it, it might still last them quite some time. Of course, the good news for other people is if you get a really later model one, they don't particularly have transmission problems with them. They iron the problems out. Now, they're expensive vehicles, there's no doubting that, but they're big, they're Honda, they can last a long time. And the only real negative of all of them are, for some bizarre reason, even the new ones use rubber timing belts. But they're good engines. You just got to make sure you change that belt every 100,000 miles. You don't want to ruin an engine because a stupid little $50 belt decided it was going to snap. Now, CX-5 is actually Mazda's biggest selling vehicle worldwide now. They sell an awful lot of them. It was purchased used last year with like 20,000 miles. Now it's got 30-something thousand miles. They have had no problems at all. And as you can see, this baby was made in Japan. J. That's what you want. These are the best ones. And it's all-wheel drive. And as we look under the hood, nice size 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. Not some dinky little 1.5 or 1.3. It's a 2.5 liter. It's a nice size engine. But with the Skyactiv technology, sometimes they get almost 40 miles a gallon on a highway in this thing. That's why this is their big seller. The previous version, the CX-3, they weren't bad vehicles, but the big problem was they didn't get such hot gas mileage. This gets much better gas mileage with a bigger engine. That's what the Skyactiv technology does. It's rather complex. Now, they haven't had any particular problems with this model at all. They run, how they shift. Now, some of them, the paint peels off. This one, the paint's perfectly fine. But some of them, especially the kind of orangey ones, I got a customer that's trying to sue them because it's all pitted away. This particular one didn't have a problem, but if you are buying one of these used, and you're fanatic about paint like one of my customers was, look closely in the sun. Not a day like today, cloudy out, a sunny day. And if you see a bunch of pits, don't buy the car because they're not going to do anything about it. She tried to get them to repaint it. They wouldn't do anything about it. She bought it used. They just said, that's a used car. That's what happened. So look at that. But in terms of the car itself, these things are actually quite well made, especially at their price point. He bought it used for like 22 grand with 20,000 miles. All-wheel drive, nice engine. As we look inside, got a beautiful interior. Plenty of space in the back, and the transmission is an actual 6-speed automatic, not one of those horrible CVT transmissions. This has very quick downshifts for acceleration, usually pretty smooth upshifts. We'll find out when we road test it, but it's a pretty good transmission engine combination. It's not overly complex. It can still get pretty good gas mileage driving down a highway. So I mean, they can push 40 on this thing, and it's pretty good for all-wheel drive SUV. Be it a compact one still. Everybody's looking for SUVs. That's how this is their biggest seller, because it meets a lot of people's needs, and they haven't had any particular problems because Mazda actually, as far as I'm concerned, has been upping their quality over the years. I've had quite a few customers buy these things brand new, and I'd say to them, okay, why'd you buy a Mazda? Why didn't you buy a RAV4? They said, well, the RAV4 is $15,000 more. If somebody smashed into one of my cars and I had to buy a brand new car and say the wife wanted an SUV, if the RAV4 was 15 grand more than one of these, I gotta say, I would seriously consider buying one of these. That's a lot of money differential for cars that can last a long time, and they both get pretty much similar gas mileage on it. I don't particularly care for all-wheel drive myself. I'd get a front-wheel drive one. I don't live in the Rocky Mountains. Most people don't even need the all-wheel drive. And of course, as I've said for years, you buy an all-wheel drive vehicle, anytime you get a flat tire, if the tire's ruined, you got to buy 4 wheels because the all-wheel drive system is very complex. And it's assuming that all wheels are exactly the same size. So if you've got 3 worn ones and 1 brand new one, you blew a tire and put a brand new one, there's much a differential between the size of the new one and the old ones. It will actually wear the transmissions, the differentials out, because the one size tire versus the other on the same axle. And of course, with an all-wheel drive system like this, even if you do it on the front and you didn't affect the back, it's still going to affect the back because they're all related to how they're driving down the road. It's all run by computers. It's called Skyactiv technology, and it's great. But like I say, anytime you get a flat tire, time to buy 4 tires. Not like any modern car, doesn't have a key, got a keyless remote. Now we'll get inside. Solid sounding door, start her up. Of course it starts up. Doesn't have that many miles on it. It's only 30-something thousand miles. Not even 30,000. 28,732 miles. And for some reason it's recording, so there, he's got a cam on just like me. You can't trust people these days. And I mean, it really is a nice setup. It's got the dual heat and air conditioning. It does have the electronic parking brake with auto hold. I'm not a fan of the electronic parking brakes, but be that as it may. And you can control everything on the dash here, play with the music, navigation, you name it. Like this, you can play with the volume here. You don't have to touch screens. You can turn the volume and everything here. That's a nice touch. And as you can see, it's a regular automatic, but if you want, you can shift it to manual mode. And now you see we're in first gear, second gear. You can shift it up and down if you want. Most people don't care. they just leave it and drive. And it's not cheap like a Subaru. Look, it's got actual temperature gauge, gas gauge, all the information you want. And you can play with the information here. Traction control, you can turn it on or off. And I like this, no sunroof. I think sunroofs are stupid, they just leak. I don't want a sunroof. Now we'll check out the back seat. It is a compact SUV. There's room here, but the driver's seat here is back the whole way, and you can see it's hitting my legs. And I'm not a total giant, so yeah, it is a compact SUV or a crossover. It's got a decent sized little trunk, and of course, when you flip these down, it's more like a hatchback where you can fit all kinds of stuff inside. Let's get my fancy scan tool out and we see how it's doing. I don't expect any problems. It's only got 20-something thousand miles on it. And we'll do diagnostics. I can hear it beeping, that means it's doing its thing already. And here we go, it already read the VIN. And it knows it's CX-5, 2.5 automatic all-wheel drive. And it should do a nice topology scan. That'll pop up pretty soon. It is cold today though, so it's gonna go a little slower. There's a topology scan, so here we go. It's gonna scan the whole car. We'll look around, you can see it. Wow, it scanned it fast. That was quick. It's only got one code, smart start unit, anti-theft system transmitter. So it says there was a problem with the transmitter at some point in time, you know. Who cares about that? We'll just erase that. So let's start her up. Start her up, and we'll go to the PCM and look at live data. Remember, black is good, red is bad. Put her in gear to get better readings. Valve time is normal. Gives you the fuel rail pressure. No misfires. The equivalency ratio is 1.01, so it's only 1/100th off. Not bad, almost perfect. Oil pressure's normal. Oil temperature is good. Everything's good. That is all good. See, it's never had low oil pressure. You got a lot of information on these things for repairing them when they do get older. Break. But this one hasn't broken yet. He's had no problems whatsoever. He loves the vehicle. So let's take it for a spin. Backup camera's nice and bright. Makes it real easy backing up. Getting a little bit of rain. Well, this is all-wheel drive, so the wheels won't be sliding around. And this is one of these Mazda Zoom, so you can have some fun with it. It's relatively high up in the ground, so it's got no problem going over that hump. But realize, this is a compact SUV, compact crossover, what do you want to call it? It has a relatively small wheelbase, so as we go over these bumps, you're going to feel them. It's a decent ride, but you're going to feel them because it's a short wheelbase. All these smaller SUVs have a bit of a rough ride when you're going on bumps. That's just the nature of a small wheelbase car that's relatively high up in the air. Here we go. Hey, it is zippy. Smooth shifting. This thing's a lot of fun to drive. Now, of course, you're not going to get 40 miles a gallon driving like that, but if you drive conservatively on the highway, you can. Strangely enough, it's rated for much lower gas mileage, but when they drive 60 on the highway, when it's 60 miles an hour, they've gotten up to 40 miles a gallon in this thing. That's why this is their biggest seller. The previous one was a bigger gas hog. This gets better gas mileage, and I mean, that 2.5 liter engine is a good engine. If you want to go faster, you can shift it to manual. We'll do that. It's in third gear now, so we'll put it in. It puts itself in first gear when you stop, which is kind of cool. Sounds great. We'll see what it's like to hill shifting ourselves. All right, now we got it in first gear. Reasonably crisp shifts when you're doing it manually, and you see, even though I'm not doing it when it comes to a stop, it automatically goes to first gear because it doesn't want you to start off in third gear. It goes back to 1 automatically. We'll put it back in drive. Nice crisp shifts. That's why I like this 6-speed automatic versus the CVT where it would have just gone and wouldn't pick up as well. It is much more fun driving it with an actual 6-speed automatic transmission. And as we roll down the road, I gotta say, handle's pretty good. We'll pop back in here. See how it corners. Nice smooth cornering. No under or oversteering. It's a fun little vehicle to drive. A lot of reason people buy this because of the space. Look at the headroom. These things have a lot more room than a RAV4 does. There is a lot of room inside of these. Mazda pretty much hit a home run when they decided to mass produce these. Like I said, it is their largest seller worldwide every year. I think last year they sold like 600-something thousand of these things. So there it is. Now you know a little bit more about these CX-5s. I'm impressed. I can understand why so many people buy them. Now the other day, the guy brought me the Volkswagen comparable to this, which is the Volkswagen Tiguan, which is a German combination of tiger and iguana. I can't figure that out at all. But be that as it may, the Volkswagen was pretty much in the same price range as this thing was, and burnt oil because it had that horrible 4-cylinder 2-liter Audi Volkswagen turbo engine. These engines, 2.5 liter, no problems. The Tiguan was turbocharged, which is probably one of the reasons it burned oil. Hey, if you're looking for a crossover SUV of this size, I'd say definitely go look at one of these. Compare the prices of the various ones. And if, like some of my customers, they said, well, you know, that RAV4 was 15 grand more than this was, and they bought this, and they've been totally happy with them. Other than one woman who bought a used one, the paint was coming off. Do look at the paint if you're looking at a used one, but I gotta say, with the 6-speed automatic in that engine, pretty decent car. Now as we walk around, we can see it's a beautiful vehicle. Right? Mazda lately has made some really nice looking cars. There's no arguing that. It is a small SUV. Americans call it a compact. In Asia, they think it's a giant car, but here they call it a compact SUV. But, hey, it's still got room. Now when we open it up, of course, you can see, yeah, there's a limited amount of legroom with the seats put back. That's just how it goes. But since this is a high-end one, it's got beautiful seats, very comfortable. And if you're the type of person who wants all-wheel drive, this is all-wheel drive. He lives in Wisconsin. I've been in northern Wisconsin in the winter. Sometimes there's 8 or 10 feet of snow, so it probably comes in handy there. Now, one of the reasons he bought it is because of what's under the hood. It's got a nice 4-cylinder engine. We'll take the stupid beauty cover off, throw it in the grass. It's 4 cylinders, but there is no turbocharger on this thing. Mazda always calls themselves Zoom Zoom. They're still zippy cars without a turbo, but without a turbo, guess what? This engine is going to outlast any 4-cylinder engine that has a turbocharger in it. There's less pressure in the engine. They hold up longer over time. You're better getting a little bit bigger engine with no turbo than getting like a little 1.5 or 1.1 liter engine with a turbo that puts out the horsepower, but it really limits the lifespan of the vehicle. This isn't going to have that problem. It's a 2.5 liter, and what's it connected to? An actual automatic transmission. As we look inside, this has a real automatic transmission, not one of those stupid CVTs. It's a 6-speed automatic transmission with gears, and it's pretty much fun to drive. But unlike the Mazdas of decades ago, these transmissions are relatively bulletproof because of their relationship with Toyota, sharing engineering and stuff. Mazda and Toyota down south, I believe it's Alabama, they're making cars on the same assembly line. So the quality of these things is much better than it was. And people always have a little time lag in how they think. A lot of people still think Toyotas, they're the best, so the prices are still high. Where some people, especially if they've been around a little while, they might have bought a Mazda 20 years ago with a bad automatic transmission. They're like, yeah, I'll never buy another one of those. You might rethink it when you go and look at the price of a Toyota SUV compared to the price of this with what you get inside. I've had a lot of customers buy these things because of that. They figured they got more value for their money in a product that was almost equivalent to the Toyota, but would be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 less. So when you consider a nice 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, 35 miles a gallon with an all-wheel drive vehicle, I haven't seen these particular ones have any problems, unlike the turbos that I do see problems with, believe me. If there's one thing you get out of my videos, it's don't buy a turbo car unless it's a diesel. The diesel engines are stronger. They can take it. They're made for turbochargers. They had turbochargers on decades and decades ago. But you're buying a gasoline car, my advice, stay away from turbochargers if you want long life. Now, maybe you want to be real zippy. You get rid of your cars every 5 years. They get 100,000 miles. You say goodbye car. Well, that might be okay for you then. But with times as tight as they are, the average American car is something like 14 and a half years old now. Hey, you don't want to have a turbocharged car that's that old, especially with a small engine. Stay away from them if at all possible. Look at the problems Toyota's had with their V6 turbos in the Tundras. Hey, that just says it all. So we plugged our old scan tool in. There she blows. As you can see, it's got 26,000 miles on it. He bought it used with 20,000, and it's doing its thing, linking itself up, scanning the vehicle. There's no codes, which we didn't expect, so let's look at live data. We'll start her up, and we'll start analyzing everything. Okay, remember, black is good, red is bad. I don't expect any problems. This vehicle's only got 20-something thousand miles on it. Airflow is correct. That's going good. Oxygen sensor data is normal. And look at the fuel trim. Zero fuel trim. Both of them. Zero. These things are well made. Zero trim, you can't get any better than that. Now, of course, it's got electronic parking brake. They all have electronic parking brakes these days. I hate those things. Also has an auto hold. You can do regular or you can do sport. We'll put it on sport. You can see there. Now it's in sport. Not only does it go zoom zoom, but the music goes zoom zoom. It's got all kinds of music adjustments. So let's take it for a spin. We can see there. It's got a decent backup camera. First thing I noticed, man, smooth idle. You can shift it manually if you want, but I'm filming, so it's automatic all the way for me. You can barely even feel it shift. The click was the automatic locking doors, which they all have, of course. Small wheelbase car, but it has a decent ride. You're always going to get a little bumps on something that's this small frame that it's on, and that it's a really compact, some people even call them subcompact SUVs. Of course, it's going to feel a little bit bumpy when you're going. It really corners good. You'll feel bumps when you hit bumps. It's like my wife's Matrix. It's only going to do so much smoothing out of the bumps when it's a sports utility vehicle that's a sporty, and I do have it on sport mode too, but it really is fun to drive around. Here we go on Tobacco Road. We'll wait till that truck gets out of the way. He's going mighty slow. Country boy in his pickup truck. So we'll go even slower as long as there's nobody behind us. We'll look behind us. I don't see anybody in the rear view mirror, so we can go pretty slow. And we come to a stop. And here we go. Really smooth shifting. Now, it's not a race car, but we're doing 51 now. Guy keeps putting his brakes on. Nobody knows why. Must be an old man. Hey, I might be old, but at least I'm not slow. Now, we are getting a little wind noise here, so I'm assuming this was a used car, and we believe it was a rental car. I'm guessing it was probably hit on this side at one point in time, because my wife's Matrix was before we bought it. And there's a little wind noise coming through. Nothing outrageous, but it would bother me. And of course, being a Mazda, they're supposed to be zoom zoom. Instead of slowing down on this curve, we'll speed up a little. And really no problems whatsoever. It's a fun little car to drive around, I gotta say. Very smooth driving in sport mode. I like it. And I do have to say, these seats are really comfy. They just hug you. I would have no problem driving from Tennessee to Rhode Island back in this baby. Now we're on the other side of the airport. They're building up here. And hey, it's a nice, smooth running little car. I can see why people buy these, to save 10 or 20 grand over buying a Toyota product like a RAV4. And as you can see, it's got the lane departure. I just let go for a second and see, it knows, it's wiggling, telling me I'm getting too close to the lane outside. Knowing me, it would annoy me because it'd be going off all the time. I am really amazed at how smooth it shifts though. You don't even feel it going through those 6 shifts. Even under full load when I took off, it shifts smooth. It didn't go, it was very smooth. What do I think of this Mazda CX-30? Well, for the money, really, you can't beat it, I gotta say. I like the 6-speed automatic, not one of those crappy CVTs. I like the 2.5 liter gasoline non-turbo engine. Gonna last longer, got plenty of pickup, but it still can get 35 miles a gallon on the road with all-wheel drive. This is all-wheel drive too. That makes a big difference. And here's the thing, they pretty much perfected it. I didn't even notice my whole drive that it even was all-wheel drive. It's a great system and it works when it needs to. So really, for the money, the CX-30 is a pretty good car. And since he bought it, with the coming recession, it seems, the prices for these used ones has gone down $3,000 or $4,000 less, and they're seem to be dropping. Might not be a bad time to buy one if you've got the money, because if the recession comes, you might not have any money at all. And with the advantage of all-wheel drive, hey, it's a pretty good package in that price range. I gotta say, Mazda's definitely going up in quality. Just realize one thing. Get them with real gears. This is a 6-speed automatic. Get them without turbos. They're gonna last longer. Listen to me, you'll save yourself a lot of grief if you're the type of person that keeps your car a long time, and since the average American car is like 14 and a half years old, a lot of people are agreeing with me these days. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.